Dr. Regina Davis Moss, and I'm thrilled to kick off Outspoken with Regina. Today, we're diving into a powerful conversation about reproductive justice, a legacy in motion, a movement that's shaping our present, empowering us towards a more just future. You won't want to miss this. And you know what? I just understood that our stream started a little bit late, so let me welcome you again. I'm Dr. Regina Davis Moss, and I'm thrilled to kick off Outspoken with Regina. I said today we're diving into a powerful conversation about reproductive justice, a legacy in motion, and it's a movement that's shaping our present and future. Now, some of you may wonder, what is Outspoken? It's a platform for trusted, fearless insight on the issues shaping your world. Today, we're diving into the vital conversation about reproductive justice, a movement that's 30 years old, but it's carried forward by generations and one that must continue as we continue to fight in this current moment. Reproductive justice is a movement with a deep, very deep roots in the past, and the future is still in the making. And that's why today we're talking about how both seasoned, like me, and emerging leaders are pushing boundaries to ensure this fight for reproductive justice continues across generations. Today's discussion is about the multi-generational movement. It's We're going to be talking about how we're advancing this movement both through digital advocacy and on the ground organizing. So let's explore how these generations are coming together to confront the challenges of today. Let me introduce to you our amazing guest. Our first panelist is Jameelah Jones. You may know her as Sunny Day Jones. She is a dynamic educator. She's a digital creator. Her roots are in Black history and educational access. She hails from Atlanta and has become a leading force in making sure that knowledge is accessible to all. She's also passionate about empowering communities through learning and through digital space, and she's transforming how people engage with the world of reproductive justice. Please join me in welcoming Jameelah to the screen. Hey, Jameelah, how you doing?
Hey, cool kids. I am so happy to be here. Today is a really good day. I'm so excited. Thank y'all for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Now, as I said, you've been at the forefront of shaping conversations in digital spaces. And in many ways, these spaces are where movements are born now. We've seen that happen through many of them over the years. And so where many of today's conversations are taking place is also online. So let's really talk about first, how did you get involved in reproductive justice and what continues to drive your work today?
That is such a good question. Thank y'all again for having me. I'm Sunny Day Jones. I have spent almost all of my life as an educator in some form and capacity, particularly teaching at the intersections of insert thing here and Black history, right? Like the thing I tell myself is I can paint anything Black, right? Because there are so many things. Everything about how we exist in this country and this world has an intersection with Black history in some type of way. And I was in my master's program getting my degree in African American studies when the fight for reproductive justice really hit me in the face. You know what I mean? I don't know if it was a news story or a social media article that I saw. It had to be something about Black maternal health rates. And the ADHD Black girl in me went on a deep dive, and I haven't stopped talking about it since. And I think that reproductive justice is an issue of Black justice, Black liberation, and Black history. And I think when you know that, it's hard not to become a staunch advocate for it. When you know that reproductive justice sits right in the middle of the fight for liberation and the knowledge of Black history, it's hard not to have it come up in the work that I do.
But you did a great job of talking about how reproductive justice shows up in your everyday life. For those viewers that are just learning about reproductive justice, how do you define it? And then further to that, how do you use it in digital advocacy?
I define reproductive justice as a Black feminist centered movement around the reproductive health, reproductive rights, and reproductive healthcare access of people who need it, right? And for me, that shows up. You said, how does it show up in my advocacy work?
Your digital advocacy work, and like what messages, when you're talking to your audiences, what messages do you think resonate most with them?
Oh, definitely that the connection between reproductive justice and Black history, right? The experimentation on enslaved Black women to come up with what we now know as gynecology, that's not a rumor. Like, it's a real thing that happened, right? Those types of moments, those types of things, connecting to present history of things like forced sterilization of Indigenous women, of women in incarcerated women, and things that are still happening today. Making those connections are things that resonate, because when you say reproductive justice, some people might not understand what I'm talking about. But when I say the history of Black women and Black LGBTQ people not getting the healthcare and access to healthcare that they need, oh, we understand now. So now let's have a deeper conversation. Let's have a deeper conversation. And I think that connecting the two for people is something that's really helpful, because you have to connect all of these words, all of these things they're seeing on the internet, all these panels that they're seeing to their real life. And I think that's what resonates the most when I talk about reproductive justice on my platforms. People need to know that there is a direct connection between reproductive justice now and Black history then.
Yeah, I know you love history, but sometimes I think about when people hear the word history, they tend to think, oh, that happened in the past. But you talked
Mhm.
about some things that people don't think, I think, no, are actually still happening today. Share a little bit more about that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that history, first off, history happens every day. Everything that happened before 309 right now is officially history, is officially
I
an
love
event.
that.
5 minutes ago, when you introduced me, that's officially a historical event, because that happened 5 minutes ago. So when you think of it like that, history doesn't become this far off thing. It doesn't become this far off thing. And for me, history is not just about knowing the facts and spitting back the textbook. It's about taking those facts and expanding them so we can understand the root, because it's the root that keeps getting planted over and over and over again, right? The root of the experimentation, the gynecological experimentation on Black women, is that Black women are not seen as human and are therefore do not have reproductive rights, or are not seen as competent enough to understand their own bodies, and therefore someone else needs to step in and handle their reproductive rights. When you think of it like that, you can't tell if I was talking about 1865 or 2025. And I think that is something that I really try to drill down, that history is not just black and white pictures of things that happened a long time ago. We're talking about the history of the foundations that got us here, because the foundations of the things that I talk about still exist. And that's why we're still having to repeat parts of history that we would much rather be free from.
Absolutely. And, we couple that with trying to just erase our history so that
Hmm.
we can't teach people about the atrocities that happened to us, or even the fact that, we exist, and then that allows them to further dehumanize us. But let's talk about another thing that's happening online, and that is all this misinformation and disinformation. What challenges do you face in use of social media with regard to RJ, and how do you counter these challenges? Because I know they are tough.
Oh, we okay. So I'm gonna have a little teacher moment, and because a lot of people don't understand the difference between misinformation and disinformation.
Please.
So misinformation is, think of it literally like MIS, like a miss. So it's kind of like an accidental It's an accidental implant of things that are not true. So if you play telephone in school and you say one thing and it's supposed to pass down, and by the time it gets to that last person, it's something entirely different. That's kind of how misinformation works. It doesn't have to be intentional. It can be damaging just the same, but it doesn't have to be intentional. Now, disinformation is a concentrated, intentional effort to spread information that is false. So this didn't happen at all. All right. So the Southern strategy, the idea that the South after slavery made it a point to try to change the way that people saw slavery and how they saw the Civil War. The Southern strategy, that didn't happen at all. That wasn't a real thing. Disinformation, because you are making a point to spread something that is not false, that is not true. You're making an intentional choice to spread something that is false. So misinformation and disinformation, that's the difference. And the way that that shows up in reproductive justice, I can't think of another way of another area of work that is so surrounded by misinformation and disinformation, right? The idea that reproductive justice is only about abortion. The idea that abortion is killing babies, right? Misinformation and intentional disinformation, so that people will hold on to the pieces of different disinformation and misinformation, and that's what's being used to form their opinion. And some of the reactions that I will get to some of my work, I can tell that it is full of that mis and disinformation. Like, oh, okay, this is information that is not true that you have received, and you are using untrue information to form your opinion. It's like I'm eating a cake and I can taste that someone intentionally gave you salt instead of sugar. So now what you're giving me to eat and what you're eating and what you're giving other people to eat, it's not quite right. It's not quite right. And how do you communicate that to someone? How do you communicate that to someone now that the salt is baked into their cake, i.e. their brain, right? Now that the salt is baked in, it's real hard to unbake a cake, right? And that's the point of mis and disinformation, because you have to start over. You have to start over. And I
Yeah.
think part of my work is helping people to see that sometimes you might have to start over in the way that you think, because someone put salt in your cake instead of sugar and you ran with it.
Yeah. And I think that is why Black feminists always talked about the importance of storytelling. It's been an essential tool, not just in Black feminist movements, it's been all movements in terms of moving people to action. How are you using storytelling in your digital work?
Oh, almost all of my digital work starts or ends with a story. I think that people don't work with people they don't know. People don't organize, move forward with people they don't know. And I may look like a 16 by 9 box of information to everyone, but I think bringing the human aspect into the conversations that we are having with the storytelling is so important. It's so important. My grandmother had 12 children, and she wanted to have all them children. She wanted to have all of those children. Okay. But her choice is not everyone's choice. Her choice is not everyone's choice. That's something that we need to understand. The storytelling allows people to see themselves and even see others more clearly. I am someone who takes a reproductive drug for reasons other than reproductive justice. So when people go, well, I don't know anybody that takes birth control for a reason other than getting pregnant. Yes, you do. You officially do. I do. And so that piece of reproductive health care being removed from me quite literally puts my life in danger, right? So the disinformation that people are only taking birth control or any other type of reproductive drug, that this type of reproductive health care is only to avoid a certain outcome instead of protecting our health, that disinformation needs to be countered with stories.
I think you just gave a perfect example of how a story can make plain what reproductive justice is. I mean, you started off by talking about it's more than just abortion. And, we always say reproductive justice is the right to have a child and the right to not have a child. So most people get stuck on the right to not have a child. But just as you said, your grandmother wanted the right to have a child and the right to have as many children as she wanted. And that's an issue that a lot of people don't understand that Black women face. We face people telling us we can't get pregnant, or trying to sterilize us without our consent.
Telling us we shouldn't, because we're stereotypically believing the stereotype that we're not good mothers, right? Like there are so many bad stories told, and we need to counteract that in order to move forward.
Right. And even your point around you taking a drug or a medication, that's why we talk about, then we need access to reproductive health services, and we need access to the full range of services, because they also have an impact on how we determine our reproductive destiny. So I just think that was perfect the way you did that. And hopefully it helps the people understand, and our listeners understand the nuances around RJ, that it is not just about abortion, and it goes beyond that. Now, I just want to spend a little more time around, I joked and said seasoned professionals, and, it's not just about age, it's about people that have been engaging in the work a while. But there are a lot of people out there that engage, they're very active on social media. Like, what if they want to start using their platform to support RJ? What is the most effective way for them to get started?
I think the most effective way is sharing information from platforms like this that have reputable, well-researched information, right? The first thing that you can start to do, even if you're scared to use your voice, share other people's, right? A retweet, a repost, that's really kind of how I started out, especially when I started talking about more hot button topics like reproductive justice, right? I would share an article, I would repost something that an organization that an organization posted, and then I would get comments about, wait, you agree with this? And I was like, yeah. You want to talk about why? I do. I would repost a commentary about a restrictive reproductive justice law that came out, and I would say this is not right. And someone in my comments would say, why? Why do you think that? Why do you believe that? I think this is a great thing, right? And that's really how a lot of people started out doing the work that I do. The height of the racial justice movement of our lifetime, right around 2012 or 2015, that also coincided with the rise of personal social media sites, of Twitter, of MySpace, of Facebook, of these types of things. And particularly using those sites, because MySpace, that's been, those things were around before, but using those spaces to talk about social issues. Yeah, I have so many friends, so many comrades who realized that 2015 was when they realized that everyone around them was racist, and they needed to change that because they would speak out and realize how many people didn't agree with what they were saying. And that's kind of how they got started, and just went, and another thing. I like to joke and say that my platform has just been going, and another thing for 10 years now. I would say the first thing to do, if you're not comfortable sharing your voice, share what other people have done, so that people can at least know where you stand, and then you can go forward with your audience from there.
Tell people how to follow you.
How to follow me?
Yes.
I am Sunny Day Jones everywhere. I'm Sunny Day Jones. If you want to buy clothes on a reselling site, I'm Sunny Day Jones over there. I'm Sunny Day Jones everywhere you want to find me. I'm Sunny Day Jones at sunnydayjones.com. I'm Sunny Day Jones wherever I want to be found. And please come find me. Let's talk.
Okay. And we're going to thank you, and we're going to bring you back. But now we're talking about these different generations. I want to turn our attention to a younger advocate who is shaping the future of this movement. Thank you, Jameelah, for that powerful insight. We'll come back. Our next panelist is a passionate advocate that works at the intersection of public health and social justice. Kevin Napier is a student at Johnson C. Smith University. He's also a fellow with our Next Generation Leadership Institute. Yay. He's committed to advancing reproductive health, promoting donor registration in marginalized communities, and he's also a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha. How can we forget that? Kevin, we're so excited to have you here. Please join me in welcoming Kevin to the panel. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, how you doing, Regina?
I'm doing great. Kevin, your work is so inspiring, especially as a young leader who's actively organizing on your campus. We have to always talk about reproductive isn't just a policy issue, it's a generational one. And young activists like yourself are ensuring that this movement stays fresh, it stays vibrant, and it's relevant. So I want to hear your perspective. First, let's start like what inspired you to get involved in reproductive justice, and what are the challenges that you might be facing on your campus about, reproductive justice? And like, I want to hear how it is to be a male presenting person in this space, a champion reproductive justice.
So I'll start with what inspired me. So I'll say what inspired me was my teacher, Dr. Mead. I took her intro. I originally came to college wanting to be a physical therapist, and I took her intro to health education course, and that kind of just shifted my whole focus into public health. That's from that class. That's what I wanted to do. So I remember she had us go to a perinatal health equity collective meeting for as a professional development activity, and they were talking about Black maternal health and kind of the statistics behind it, and it kind of just blew me away. Like I was kind of just shocked that, because I do a little bit of research, so realizing that Black women have lower outcomes in terms of maternal health and in terms of infant health across the board, regardless of any demographic, regardless of education, class, like anything. It was kind of just like a wake up call. Like, this is what I need to do. This is just what I want to do. I want to work in this space however I can, and kind of just lend myself to reproductive justice, lend myself to public health, and lending myself to helping my community. I would say that some challenges that have been presented. Sorry about my smoke alarm. They haven't came and fixed it. I go to a historically Black college, and my alarm is very pro-Black, clearly.
Right. Still getting that education, though.
Still getting that education, right. So I would say some, I guess, challenges that I have faced as a young advocate on campus is that a lot of people don't take younger advocates or younger activists, whatever, younger people in the reproductive justice movement or in any movement really serious. A lot of times you kind of get you're so adorable. And sometimes it can be annoying. More times than not, it can be annoying. Like, we want to be recognized for the work that we're doing rather than just, some kid trying to make a difference. So I guess to combat that is you just have to be like uber professional. You have to be very extra professional to be recognized for the work that you're doing, and not just as, some kid with a camera trying to make a difference or something like that. Also, like a lack of resources, that's also an issue. But early on, I realized that securing community partnerships in my community. So I actually reached out to Vive Healthcare, and they put me in contact with a couple different clinics around Charlotte area before I became an NGLI fellow, and they ended up giving me, I think I went to the Drop and I went to Quality Assured Healthcare up Betty's Ford. And so they ended up giving me like thousands and thousands of condoms. They kind of turned me on to the Advocates of Youth program. So what was it called? The EC for Every Campus. So I did that, ended up securing 528 units of emergency contraceptives to distribute to my campus community. And so I always realized that I don't have the answers. I don't always have what I need. So securing community partnerships. And then I also think that lack of experience is also a barrier, but that is also why you lean on mentors, which is, you lean on people with more experience who can show you the way. And also just don't be afraid to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes wherever you are. So just being open to learning, being open to growing. And yeah, so that's kind of some challenges that I've faced.
Amazing. And, I don't want to let that slip by that you disperse emergency contraception. Tell the listeners what that is and how you do that. That's not just something anybody can do. Tell, without sharing any names, like tell somebody what that's like when you have someone that needs emergency contraception.
So on my campus community, it's not. So some places it can be very like hush hush taboo or like very discreet. I do my best to be discreet and to preach discretion to whoever volunteers with me. But a lot of people like on my campus community are just very open. They're very comfortable. That's kind of just from me communicating and being just being a part of my greater campus community and genuinely participating. So people feel comfortable. So they'll just like, they'll knock on my door or they'll shoot me a text. Or, they'll see me and they'll pull me to the side. Hey, Kevin, do you have this? Or I need this for my bandmate, or I need this, could you hold this in my room for my teammate? This, that, and the third. And I go make sure that I have, whatever resources and get back to them immediately. If I don't have it, then I refer them to somewhere where they might. But if I do have it, then I try to get that to them as soon as possible. It's a really enriching experience just knowing that I'm directly making a difference in each of my peers' lives. And it's just, I don't know, it's something that I'm glad that I started doing, that I'm glad that I found that program and that kind of guided me even further towards reproductive justice.
You are helping people actualize on their bodily autonomy. If they decide, hey, at this moment, that's not something I can do, you are helping them be in control of that. I talked a little bit about this. What's it like as a male in this space? Tell me about some of your experiences around that.
Being a male in this space, it is, I feel very like privileged. I feel very like just, I guess excited. Whenever, I'm doing any of this work, it feels just like, I don't know, like I know that males aren't traditionally in the reproductive justice spaces, especially not, cis het males. So being that I'm here, I try to, number one, I try to always listen more than I talk. I try to just listen. I put my critique and my, I give my thoughts, but I always try to listen first. It's not, I wouldn't say I'm a guest in the space, but I'm a guest in the space. There is a place for everybody in the reproductive justice movement, but right now it is more focused on women, and it is more focused on the LGBTQ community as a whole and kind of that intersection. So I realized that it's not, I'm not the forefront. So just realizing that, be a guest, help the movement, give your thoughts, but I have to listen more than I talk. And I have to realize areas and times that I'm not qualified to give my 2 cents. And yeah, so it's very humbling. It's very, I feel so privileged to, like do my work in this field. So I'm just it's just always something that makes me smile, and realizing how, how special I am in terms of not every person gets to have this experience that I do. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. You touch on a couple of things. So I may circle back, but I want to talk about just reproductive justice around in your generation. Like, what are some of the misconceptions that you hear? What's something you're always having to correct when you're talking about reproductive justice? When you're talking to peers?
I always have to correct that it's only about abortion. I get that a lot. It's not just about abortion. It's just, it's not about abortion. It's about bodily autonomy as a whole. It's about the right to have children. It's about the right to not have children. And it's about the right to being able to express yourself freely in terms of your sexuality and in terms of pleasure. So I always have to tell people that it's not just about abortion, and whatever your whatever your views on abortion are, it's still reproductive justice is still, there's still other components of it that affect your life just as greatly as abortion, and whatever your stance is on that. Another misconception is that it only is focused on women, and that, you know, women are the only people who are supposed to be working in this space. I always have to kind of tell a lot of my guy friends, or just tell a lot of guys in general, like, this isn't just about women. Like, right now it is heavily focused because that's kind of, you know, where they're focusing on women's rights and women's bodily autonomy. But if they can take away a woman's bodily autonomy, what is stopping them from taking away yours, right? You know, what is stopping them from, all right, you know, we moved on from women, let's go to black people, or let's go to gay people, or let's go to, you know, janitors. Like, who, you know, who's to say that you're not next? So it's not just about women, it's about realizing that we have to fight for each other. We have to fight for our communities. You have to be a member of the community, and we have to fight for each other. And then it's also just reproductive justice in general isn't about, you know, like, everybody wants the right to express yourself freely in terms of sexuality and in terms of, you know, pleasure and whatnot. So that's not about women. That goes for everybody, right? Yeah. And then so, and then also, people think that it exists in a vacuum, that is just a woman problem, or is just a reproductive justice issue that is in a vacuum. But it is a symptom of, like, it's a symptom of, like, a larger, how would I say it, systematic oppressions, right? Like racism, sexism, classism. It's kind of a symptom of that. So you're to try to separate and, you know, say that, oh, you know, I'm pro-black, but I don't really mess with that reproductive justice movement over there. Like, that is anti-black. You actively working against the reproductive justice movement, you are being anti-black, you are practicing anti-blackness. So I have to tell people, like, you can't choose a side. If you want to be pro-black and you want to, you know, work in the interest of black people, then you need to work in favor of reproductive justice, point blank, period.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, and I'm just incredibly proud to hear you speak. I mean, this has been what we've done in all of the movements, civil rights, all of those. We always open the door to everyone because we realize that if that's your fight, then that's my fight. You know, I wondered if you wanted to talk a little bit about, you had the opportunity to spend a couple of days with one of the founding mothers of the reproductive justice movement. What was that like for you? And then what after that, or maybe even before, like, talk about the role you see yourself playing in the future of reproductive justice.
That is a time that I look upon very fondly. I got to meet Miss Loretta Ross, and that was probably, like, that's highlight of 2024. Probably that dinner that we all had was probably the best time I've had all year, or one of the best times I've had all year. It was, number one, nice to see her button collection. That was something special. That was expansive.
How many buttons? How many buttons would you say?
There was boxes on boxes of, at least, I want to say it was like 6x6, so about 24, and it was like just at least hundreds, and 200 plus, and that's being very very sparing, right? I'm lowballing. But it was wonderful to see, and it was wonderful to kind of realize, you know, when people talk about established movements, like, you feel like everything is in black and, like, everything happened in black and white. Everything was so many years ago. And getting to talk to a founding mother of the reproductive justice movement made me realize, like, number one, it wasn't that long ago. And you know that from studying the history, but when you actually get to sit down and speak to a founding mother, it's like you realize, like, it wasn't that long ago. You realize that, you know, a lot of the same struggles that, you know, she faced, we still face today. And it kind of just, like, I don't know. I just found myself writing everything down, writing everything she said down. I just wanted to, I guess, get everything that she had and just soak it in, and take that with me. And I try to take that with me every day, every time I do something reproductive justice related, and sometimes not. She had a lot of quotables, some stuff that I'm not going to share on here, but she had a lot of quotables that I think about on the daily. So it was amazing. And what was
Yeah.
the second part of the question?
Well, I was just going to, like, what role do you see yourself playing in the future of reproductive justice? And just like before you answer that, like, I want people to understand, when they founded reproductive justice 30 years ago, there were some of the founding mothers were only a couple of years older than you were, right?
Right.
So understanding that, like, what role do you see yourself playing as a young activist in the future of reproductive justice?
So I see myself. I want to kind of climb, like, it kind of. I want, number one, I want it to align with my professional life. I don't want this. I want to give. I want to dedicate myself to reproductive justice. Like, I want it to be what I'm working on. I want it to be more than just a side passion, or like, I want it to be my main focus. So I plan on eventually ending up as, the deputy director of a health department, or an executive of a nonprofit, and doing everything that I can to uplift reproductive justice, whether that's through policy work, through health care programming, through initiative, through anything. I want to, at any time that I'm awake and my eyes are open and I'm breathing, I want to uplift reproductive justice.
I love to hear that. And that's exactly what we're preparing you to do in the Next Generation Leadership Institute. You just made that so easy for me to do this plug. But let me just say, we pick these HBCU students from all across the country. They work with us for 2 years, not because we want them all to be reproductive justice advocates. We know that people are going to take different paths, but whatever they do, we want them to have applied that lens of reproductive justice. That's how we make sure we have a more just world, because we have reproductive justice thinkers in every aspect of this work. Now, we're nearing the end of this conversation, so I'd like to bring Jameelah back. Thank you so much, Kevin, for that. Tell our viewers how they can follow you before we begin this conversation.
You can find me on Instagram at KW Napier _ that is where I'm at on Instagram. I'm really just on Instagram right now. I haven't gone to building up my other platforms. But right now you can follow me on Instagram at KW Napier _.
Great. So now we're going to bring Jameelah back. Unfortunately, we are ending this, like, almost close to the end of this conversation. And so, like, I want to ask each of you if you could leave our audience with just one action item. Now, I won't say you have to keep one if others come to mind. Something that they can do to further the reproductive justice movement. What would it be? Let's start with you.
You need to sign up for newsletters and email lists of organizations like this one, organizations that are passionate about reproductive justice, that will give you accurate news and reporting. And you need to read those emails when they come to you. Put them in a folder so that you can say, all right, I will make it fun. I will go and hang out and play a podcast or something, sit back and read. I will listen to jazz in the background, romanticize the whole thing if you have to. But the one step that I would give is to take more steps to stay educated and stay informed, right? So I don't have to rush to give you the magical thing, because when you sign up for these emails lists and newsletters, you will find more information so you can get in even further where you fit in. I think that that's the most important thing, is to let this be your starting point and not your ending point.
And to piggyback off of what Jameelah said, I would say that after you educate yourself, you have to kind of realize that your choices affect your community. So once you're educated enough to make decisions based through a reproductive justice framework, do that as often as possible. Realize that all of your actions have consequences, and like the way you vote, the way that you engage with your community, the way that you talk to people, the way that anything, what, you have to just be the best person that you want to be in terms of reproductive justice. Like kind of try to think of it through the lens of reproductive justice. Any decisions that you make when it comes to voting, anything like that. So I say just be mindful and be aware, and apply your knowledge wisely.
Yeah, I mean, I need to just hit and underscore what the both of you said. The information and getting it from trusted resources and sources right now is going to be so important. Jameelah talked about that misinformation and that disinformation, but it is getting really, really tough now just to wait for all the stuff that we're hearing, and the lies and all that stuff are coming at us so fast that it's hard for us to even counteract those. So it's going to be really important now for you to find a place where you can trust the information, because truthfully, that's how some of where we are with this election turnout. People right now they have their certain podcasts that they listen to, or there's certain people that they follow, and they're talking to the choir, one way of thinking. And so you need to find yours, and it's not about us preaching to you. It's about us arming you, because we've got to stay informed. Things are happening really fast. And also the point about just getting in where you can. You do not have to be an activist or somebody that has been working on this for this a long time or have a whole lot of followers. All you need to do is pick an issue that you care about, and then figure out how you can fit in and how you can take action. So please, for us, definitely follow In Our Own Voice. You can follow us on Black Women's RJ, Facebook, and YouTube. Visit blackrj.org for more resources and get involved. One of the things that we're going to be making available to you is our 90-second video series. We'll still have these that are coming every month, but we have something called Your RJ Breakdown. These are short clips that are going to bring you the most up-to-date, pressing information about policy that you need to know specific to your community. Before we close, I just want to ask if there are any questions. If you have any, just drop them right in the chat real quick. Okay. Well, if not, I just want to thank our panelists again today, Kevin and Jameelah, Sunny Day Jones, as she's more affectionately known by. It was such a great conversation with you. Please come back. We'd love to have you back. The comments are going off. They're saying how great the conversation is and thanking you. You know what? One of the biggest strengths of reproductive justice is that it spans generations. Each generation brings new ideas, new energy, and new innovative strategies. And the wisdom of those who've been fighting for justice, combined with the creativity and the drive of these young leaders that you've just heard from, is what is going to ensure that this movement continues to evolve and thrive. So, today you just heard about reproductive justice, not just why it's relevant now, but it's also because it's going to be building on a future where every person can make a decision about their bodies, their lives, and their families, free from all of this oppression and this harm. Hopefully you heard that loud and clear, but if not, just stay with us, because we're going to be continuing to bring you more. And we only achieve reproductive justice if we come together across generations and continue this fight. Again, follow us on Black Women's RJ. This movement needs all of us. Let's make sure we show up. Thank you again to our incredible panelists, Jameelah and Kevin, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing your stories, for sharing your vision. Thank you to everyone that joined us today. We hope you're leaving this conversation energized, ready to take action, and looking ahead. Please Come back here April 23rd, 3 o'clock for our next Outspoken with Regina. It's called Diving into Maternal Health and the Black Birthing Crisis. You don't want to miss this one. We've got some amazing panelists. Thank you again, and we're going to see you next time on Outspoken with Regina.